My ex-BFF Gwen turned my life into a nightmare for 13 years, saying, "I treat my friends differently than you," while I was her emotional punchline. Finally, after feeling like a wallet and a prisoner, I cut ties and began the long road to healing. Will I ever be free? Obligatory, I am posting this from a throwaway account as my main account is followed by several friends, and I am not ready for them to know about this aspect of my life. This will be lengthy, just as a warning, as everything happened over the course of about 13 years. A summary is provided at the bottom. I met my former best friend, whom I will refer to as Gwen, when we were in middle school. I was a year ahead of her and we began our relationship in a negative manner. At that time, I was a bully as well as a snobbish one. I was one of those individuals who believed only I could appreciate something, and if someone else liked it too, they became a target for my bullying. When I focused my attention on Gwen as the new target, she actually confronted me physically and stopped my bullying. As strange as it may seem, I developed a great deal of respect for her for doing this. No one had ever stood up to me until that moment. We eventually started talking and discovered we had a lot in common. After that, we became friends. Since we lived close to one another, we spent a great deal of time together after school and during the summers. My final year of middle school was the most difficult, as I was suddenly faced with several serious health issues at once. I have always been medically fragile. This was the first instance that our friendship faced strain, as I was not around very much. This was also when her true nature began to emerge. She became verbally and physically abusive, as well as emotionally manipulative, but I was still wearing thick rose-colored glasses. It is true what they say, when looking through rose-colored glasses, all the warning signs appear as mere flags. I was in a delicate state and often found myself in the hospital while awaiting surgery, but due to my age at the time, it was challenging to find someone willing to perform the procedure on someone so young. During this waiting period, her anger flared often and she would lash out at me. Her preferred tactic was to tell me what a terrible person I was, how it was my fault she acted this way, and then she would block me on everything and ignore me for weeks before coming back as if nothing happened. This caused me to start experiencing anxiety constantly. She would also discuss not wanting to be alive, to the extent that my family intervened and had to speak with her parents, as the stress of it all sent me to the hospital multiple times. I became quiet and withdrawn. I even stopped socializing with most of my friends to be at her beck and call around the clock. Consequently, I developed severe insomnia. If she texted me at 1 a.m., I felt compelled to respond or face her wrath the following day. In all honesty, I attempted to take my own life several times, but was found by my family before any significant harm occurred. Upon entering high school, I had a bit more freedom during school hours, but after classes and on weekends, my time was completely devoted to Gwen. The abuse escalated to the point where I was being mistreated in every conceivable way. When she entered high school, my small measure of freedom vanished. I had to cater to her every need, even to the extent of allowing her to use my limited lunch money to buy her lunches. I would spend the entire school day without eating, as I never liked to have breakfast and would only eat dinner. I never informed my family about this, as they were already trying to convince me to stop being friends with her. I had reached the point where I frequently acted out against my family, because I had a terrible dependency on Gwen. Just like in middle school, Gwen isolated me from my friends and persisted with her manipulative mind games. There were moments when she would scream at me on the bus or in the hallways. There was even an occasion when one of the few friends I had required a place to stay for a few days due to a tragic event in their life, which coincided with my birthday. I spent that birthday comforting my other friend, but Gwen made me miserable for a month afterward. My parent was also battling advanced stage cancer, but I focused more on Gwen and argued with that parent much more when they asked for my help. By my senior year, I was driving and shared a car with my family. I drove to school most days and rarely had Gwen with me. That 30-minute drive was one of the most peaceful parts of my day. Unfortunately, I was foolish enough to allow her to use my locker, forcing me to see her multiple times each day. I became very adept at concealing things from her, even resorting to lying, which I disliked doing when something was occurring. I remember that as a graduation gift, my parent took me out of school one day to see my favorite band perform. I lied to Gwen, saying that my aunt was sick and we were the closest relatives. While it wasn't a complete lie, it wasn't the full truth either. She bombarded me with psychological manipulation and I missed most of the concert. At this point, I was also casually seeing someone and had to keep it a secret from Gwen because I could only imagine her reaction. When my partner invited me to prom, I had to decline and pretend I was uninterested. In reality, Gwen did not want me to attend and threatened not to come to my graduation. Ultimately, she did not attend my graduation but still came to the party afterward. The card she gave me was rather thoughtful and included mentions of the good memories we shared. My initial college plans fell through due to unforeseen circumstances on the college's part, Apparently, my full-ride scholarship was not actually a full ride, so I immediately entered the workforce. I earned just above minimum wage and worked 40 hours a week, but any money that did not go into my gas tank was spent on Gwen. She desired many expensive items and would become extremely upset if she did not receive them, claiming it was unfair that I had so much money while she could not even afford to buy coffee. During this time, since she was still in high school, she started spending time with another girl whom I will refer to as Stacy. I had not met Stacy at that point, but Gwen acted entirely differently when she discussed her. I sensed something off about Stacy. When I mentioned to Gwen that I did not really connect with Stacy, Gwen became angry and said something I can never unhear. "I treat my friends differently from you. I am not this way with my other friends." I should have walked away then. I really should have, but I couldn't. I was so deep in my own misery that I could not imagine living without her. After she graduated, we did not see each other much, but texting, Skype messaging, and phone calls continued as normal. I had changed jobs and was working irregular hours, but I rarely slept due to needing to respond to her. When I learned that she and Stacy were planning a trip together, I convinced Gwen to go on a trip with me instead. In hindsight, I suppose I felt jealousy towards Stacy, or perhaps it was due to my dependency on Gwen and my desire to keep her happy. Regardless, I began to go into debt trying to keep her happy. By this point, 8 years had passed. We established a routine in our lives, but one day I broke that routine by asking someone to accompany me to see a play. We were merely acquaintances through Gwen, but we both had an interest in this play. Gwen had no interest but instructed us to meet her at a specific location later. After watching the play, we proceeded to the location Gwen mentioned. Although we attempted to text and call her, she did not respond. When we finally located her, she was with Stacy. Gwen then acted as if we were stalkers and told Stacy she did not know us. Afterwards, Gwen confronted me about spending time with the other individual, claiming that her parents had seen us and thought we were dating. To demonstrate my loyalty, I stopped communicating with that individual, and I still regret that decision. My punishment was the familiar ignoring tactic once again. Up to this point, I have not disclosed my gender or sexuality. This is because I had questioned it my entire life. I never felt like a complete female, nor did I feel like a full male. I discovered that I identify as more gender fluid and came to accept that I am asexual, though I am open to casually dating any gender as long as things do not become serious. Before understanding my preferences, I had convinced myself that my dislike for Stacy stemmed from being in love with Gwen. I confessed my feelings to Gwen, who told me that she liked me too but emphasized that I needed to work on myself first. In retrospect, this was likely her way of tightening her grip on me as it began to loosen. Around this time, I met Alex. From the outset, Alex could tell that I was living under miserable conditions. I do not know exactly why, but I felt an instant comfort with Alex, and I shared everything that had transpired between Gwen and me up to that point. Alex discussed the concept of rose-colored glasses and indicated that mine were incredibly thick. They actively encouraged me to attempt to end my relationship with Gwen, but it proved difficult. Each time I tried to tell Gwen that we needed to talk, I was dismissed, and I would end up comforting her and apologizing. By then, saying sorry felt as natural as breathing. A few years later, the glasses finally began to crack. I underwent a major, unexpectedly life-altering surgery and was not feeling well afterward. Months before, we had purchased tickets to a play in a different state. Even though I was not fit to travel, I went along. When we arrived, I became very ill and had my parent create an emergency in order for me to return home. It was a long drive, and Gwen was angry with me the entire time and for months afterwards. This was the first time I recognized that Alex had been right, and that I was merely a means for Gwen to fulfill her desires. Not long after this realization, I discovered that Gwen had been deceiving me as well. We would make our usual plans, but Gwen would never show up. Instead of feeling relieved, it would cause panic within me as I wondered if I had done something wrong and was being blocked again. I tried calling numerous times and sent many text messages asking what I had done wrong and apologizing for whatever it could be. I would later learn that she had been going on trips with other people without mentioning them to me. It was then that another crack appeared as I understood how much control she wielded over me. She needed to know everything I was doing, who I was with, and for how long, yet I was not permitted to be privy to any of her plans because that was deemed too invasive. Finally, we reached the last few months of our friendship. There was an event out of town that we planned to attend, which was also where one of her friends currently resided. We intended to meet up with that friend for a few hours before the event and then return home directly after it. I had been out of work for a few weeks due to severe illness and did not have the funds to go. Gwen and I struck a deal. She would cover gas and food, and I would pay her back once I returned to work. I had mentioned up front that gas for both trips would cost roughly $60. When we arrived at the gas station to refuel, I was handed only $20 and told that she did not believe I would need any more than that for the trip. That was all I was given for gas and food. I had to plead with my relatives to send me some money so I could make it home. They were in a tough situation themselves, but managed to give me $15. When we met Gwen's friend for dinner, I could only afford a bowl of rice. At one point, Gwen left the table after treating herself to an extravagant meal, and her friend asked me why I wasn't eating much. I told them the truth. They saw Gwen in a new light and shared a small portion of their food with me. I still tried to rationalize it, assuming she might have miscalculated something and didn't have enough for the trip, but I was completely mistaken. She had gone on a shopping spree before and during the event, spending several $100s on various items. That moment marked the complete shattering of my rose-colored glasses. Alex had been right all along. I had allowed this person to control every aspect of my life. I was not permitted to enjoy things Gwen did not like. I could not like the same characters she liked. I was not allowed to have my own opinions. My entire existence had to revolve around her. Even my relationship with my parent faced additional strain as they had observed Gwen's true nature as well. I hesitated to throw away all those years. I wanted to try to improve things because in the back of my mind I still held on to the notion that perhaps she did not recognize the impact she had on me. So I finally told Gwen that we needed to talk. I expressed how I had felt over the years. I revealed my long-standing desire to exit the friendship. Her response was one of anger. She asked how I could betray her after I had been her only friend throughout the years until she met Stacy. I countered that I was not her only friend as she had many acquaintances. I even questioned whether I was genuinely her friend or merely a source of financial support. I offered the possibility of salvaging something if we both worked on the relationship and ourselves. She rejected this idea and asserted that everything had run its course. I acknowledged her stance and requested that she no longer contact me. I was not strong. I wept for a long time afterward. Ignoring Alex's advice, I reached out to her 3 times following our conversation. Once I requested to meet face-to-face so we could resolve matters amicably. Once I sent items I had purchased for Christmas. And once I inquired if she needed anything as the lockdowns began. I never received a reply to any of those messages. Occasionally, I see her, but I strive to maintain my distance as my anxiety begins to escalate. Sometimes, I dream about her trying to apologize, but I know such a scenario will never come to fruition. In her perspective, I wonder if she views me as the antagonist as much as I consider her to be one. It has been almost 6 years since that time, and I am still on the path to healing. My life revolved around her to such an extent that I cannot recall many memories without her presence. Everything triggers memories of her, but I am trying to create new experiences. I have begun watching things I used to enjoy and exploring new interests. I have met a few new people whom I cherish, but at times I worry they perceive me as too damaged. Alex remains in my life and is the true best friend I could ever hope for. My relationship with my parent has improved slightly, but we still face some challenges. I am starting to explore hobbies again. I continue to experience severe insomnia due to sleep-related anxiety, but I am working with my doctor to address this. I also contend with general depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, which I am managing with my physician's assistance. I had a counselor with whom I was working, but they unfortunately retired. I had only a few sessions with their replacement before my insurance changed. I am also finally consulting another doctor about my inability to eat more than once a day. I am still apprehensive about asking for help or coming across as needy, but I am taking it one step at a time. Summary: I spent 13 years being abused and manipulated before realizing the truth, leading me to become a nervous wreck attempting to reconstruct my life. Story 2. My 22-year-old ex-boyfriend coerced me at 17, exploited my kindness, and still cheated with his ex while I covered his bills. "I just like to keep relationships private," he said, but even his mom urged me to leave him. 2 weeks post-breakup, I'm thriving while he spirals. When I was 16 years old female, I met a 21-year-old man male, and this proved to be nearly 2 of the worst years of my life. He worked as a nightclub bouncer and in film and television security, and I thought, oh wow, he has a good job and he is interested in me. I considered him to be very cool. He pursued me first. He turned 22, and a month later I turned 17. However, shortly before I turned 17, when I was still 16, we met up and went to the movie theater together, and he began touching my thigh and other areas. I thought this was acceptable. In hindsight, it was not, because I had set very clear boundaries regarding being touched. The week of my 17th birthday, he went to Italy with his family but called me crying because he had failed to save money for the trip. I lent him $300 as a gesture of goodwill because I felt sorry for him. Unbeknownst to me, he still had a girlfriend at that time who accompanied them on the holiday and with whom he slept while simultaneously trying to get into my underwear. 6 weeks after I turned 17, we began dating. By dating, I mean he persuaded me to go to a hotel room with him because he felt embarrassed for me to stay with his family. "I am just a private guy," he said. "I just like to keep relationships to myself," he claimed. Little did I know it was because he had only ended his relationship with his girlfriend the month before, after already communicating with me for 3 months prior to that. We had been talking for 4 months when we entered into a relationship. A month later, his family was away for the weekend, so I went to his house and it was just the two of us. At that point, I did not want to have sexual intercourse with him. I was a virgin and frightened, and he was aware of that, but he came on to me anyway, so I went along with it. I felt disgusting afterward, and when he was away on his night shift at the nightclub, I was praying for my soul. During that same month I spent at his house, I would wake up to calls from him at 4 in the morning because he was drunk in the city again, feeling lonely, and needing my help to get home. Ironically, him being drunk was the only time he was kind to me. The following month, he came to my hometown and was blatantly rude to my family, who disliked him from the start, but naturally it was everyone else's fault and no one understood him. I paid for the entire weekend because, as usual, he had no money. He quit his job in security and began working just 16 to 20 hours building pedal bikes for minimum wage. Again, he complained about having no money and no life prospects, yet did nothing to improve himself, such as obtaining better qualifications. Nonetheless, I felt sorry for him because I bought into his stories about having an absentee father, being bullied in school as a child and teenager, and the fact that he had no friends, etc. This was also the time he lied about using cocaine when he went out to celebrate leaving security. He never had money, yet he always seemed to have money for nightlife. How amusing. The month after he visited my hometown, he cheated on me with the ex-girlfriend he had visited in Italy, and I was completely unaware. While he was buying me Valentine's Day Build-A-Bear axolotls and such, he was having an affair. I thought we were in love and happy, even though we were staying in shabby hotel rooms that I primarily paid for, and his family did not even know I existed. I discovered the truth about Italy the following month. Although I did not learn about the affair then, I had asked him to come clean about everything, but that information remained hidden for a full year after. He led me to believe they had broken up months before that, claiming it was just a mistake. I was tired, angry, and fed up with his behavior, but he made me feel like he would not cope without me, so I stayed. I felt responsible for a 22-year-old man at 17. I thought I could not leave because we had a weekend away planned that I had already paid for, so we went on that trip. I got drunk in the hotel room while he remained sober. We had sex, but to him, it was okay because I initiated it, and he considered it some of the best sexual experiences we had, experiences I could not even remember. I became ill at the end of the trip with tonsillitis, and he took care of me. I thought he genuinely cared, he looked after me, and so on. When I met his family, I felt like an outsider right from the beginning. Knowing he had taken that trip to Italy, I was unaware of the affair or that they were still together. And every time I mentioned how long we had known each other, no one said anything. They were unaware that I knew about Italy. He insisted I keep it quiet to avoid making things awkward for everyone else. So I complied. I despised him, but I stayed silent. Every time I saw him, it felt like disappointment. I made an effort to travel 3.5 hours to see him, only for him to sleep most of the weekend and spend the rest of it playing Overwatch. However, I was in love and he wanted to move in with me using the 4,000 my deceased grandfather left me and the money I earned working part-time at an arcade since he had none, and he eventually wanted to marry me. I thought we were happy. Nothing significant happened for a few months from this point, except he continued his routine of having no money while I gave, and he took without even doing the bare minimum. He did not play video games with me but regularly abandoned me for his only friend instead. He only bought me flowers 3 times in a year and a half while making comments like, "I wonder what gift you will bring me this time." For his 23rd birthday, I made it as enjoyable as possible. I bought him Krispy Kreme donuts, cookie cupcakes he liked, a Deadpool and Wolverine t-shirt for when I took him to see the Deadpool vs. Wolverine movie in IMAX. I purchased him 2 PlayStation controllers since his were broken, probably from being thrown at the wall or something, and a new cover for his PS5. I tried to make it a memorable birthday, and he said he enjoyed it. He came to my hometown again, the second time ever, and surprisingly he paid for some expenses, because his mother had given him $200 to do so, which was just embarrassing, but here we were. On my birthday, he could not even wake up to play Call of Duty with me and then acted surprised when I became upset. We did nothing to celebrate my birthday. He planned nothing and bought me gifts that only benefited him, if you understand my meaning. For Christmas, he did not put in any real effort as usual. It was all me. I got us tickets to see Slipknot. By the new year, I began to mentally check out, and then mid-February rolled around. I discovered the affair and learned he had still been with his ex during the Italy trip. I found out from his younger brother's girlfriend, who is my age and knows the ex. She revealed everything to me. I called him, screaming and telling him I hated him. However, I was stuck at his house for a week with no way to get home, so I endured it. The only reassurance he provided was that the sex was bad. I started screaming at him in his bedroom, and he got on top of me to cover my mouth so no one else would hear. The following day, I broke down. I told his mother everything, every last detail, and she advised me to leave him. She said he would never respect me and I needed to respect myself first. No one else would do it for me. You know it is serious when even his own mother tells you to leave. She felt as if she had done something wrong to make him that way, but I assured her that none of it was her fault. My uncle passed away, and we spent the entire day arguing about it because I did not want to open up right away, despite the fact that he was impossible to confide in on any emotional level without facing total indifference or being told to essentially shut up. That was one of my many final straws. 2 months later, I finally escaped. He started therapy and broke up with me to work on himself. I did not protest. I heavily agreed and felt relieved to be away. It has been 2 weeks since then, and that was the best decision I ever made. He becomes upset because I am shitty and cold towards him, but is anyone surprised? After all he put me through, I could spend the rest of my life without ever speaking to him and feel completely better for it. He is genuinely a disgusting person. He began therapy shortly after I discovered the affair 2 months ago and has only attended therapy twice. Yes, twice. His idea of self-improvement is staying at home and playing Marvel Rivals for most of the day, except for the 16 to 20 hours he works at his miserable minimum wage job building bikes. He is likely angry because I am not boosting his ego anymore to help him feel better. I deserved so much better after a year and a half, and only one of us will ultimately succeed because I am actively taking steps to help myself, going out, making new friends, etc. It has only been just scraping 2 weeks since we broke up, and I am doing well without him. I never thought I would feel fine without him after being so dependent on him for a year and a half. But when you are 18 and somehow have more going for you than a 23-year-old, that indicates there is a serious problem. He can take his dismal minimum wage job with no life prospects and go wallow in his thousands of dollars in debt from credit cards and financing a worthless Harley Davidson he cannot afford. I do not need him, but he absolutely needs me because he literally has nothing without me, no money, no friends. Even his family cannot stand him. His mother, with whom he still lives, frequently throws him out due to his behavior. If you are reading this and knows who you are, I hope you burn in hell. A story 3. My childhood was a nightmare, and just when I thought I'd found a connection, she said, I'm still in love with my ex. To top it off, I crashed my motorcycle and realized no one even checked in. Now I wonder, is there any purpose left for me at 23? Summary at the end. I do not feel as though my life has a purpose, and everything that can go wrong just keeps going wrong. I do not know how much more I can endure. By no means have I had the worst upbringing, but it has not been easy at all. My birth mother was 14 when she had me, so I was placed for adoption. I spent a couple of years in foster care, but I have no recollection of that time. I was adopted when I was 3 or 4 years old along with my half-brother, who is 1 year younger than I am, by my current parents obviously, and I suppose despite their efforts they were not great. To be specific, my mother was not great toward me. She embodies the typical Asian mother where nothing is ever good enough. That has definitely affected me, but I will revisit this later. My mother's worst habit was hitting. Personally, I cannot understand hitting a child. They are just a child. However, my mother certainly loved it. I believed that when you made a mistake, you would receive a small hit, learn your lesson, and then move on. Unfortunately, my mother never thought that was sufficient. On numerous occasions, I understandably made mistakes, received punishment, and assumed that was the end of it. My mother would then wake me up in the middle of the night and physically assault me. I remember being dragged into the bathroom where I was slapped, kicked, and had my hair and ears pulled. This continued until I reached around 11 years old. I hear some of you asking, and your father just let this happen? No, he did not. He worked abroad frequently, and my mother would only behave this way when he was away. As a child, during those beatings, I was too frightened to tell him about it. I recognize that others have had worse upbringings, and mine is quite mild in comparison, but I genuinely believe it has significantly impacted me. Now, I assume that much of my trauma stems from the entire experience of being adopted, being beaten by my adoptive mother. This was the only kind of physical contact I received as a child, and constantly being reminded that I am not good enough. I have a slight phobia of touch, which I am gradually trying to overcome, and I am making slow progress. However, it severely hinders my ability to get close to others. I'm not ashamed to share my feelings with strangers on the internet, but it truly bothers me, and I do not understand what my issue is. I am a 23-year-old male living at home and still a virgin. Do not misunderstand me. I want to move out and I am saving for a deposit on a house, but I have taken these steps later than most people, and I feel it is affecting me since I have to spend more time around my mother than necessary. I believe my significant issue is still being a virgin. In reality, I am not overly concerned about it, but it is painful to hear all the stories my friends share and feel unable to relate. It makes me feel incredibly excluded. Another concern is that being a virgin truly affects how others perceive me. I sense that many people judge me for it, and it probably limits an already restricted pool of potential partners who may be interested in me. So let me reveal everything. I possess absolutely no self-confidence and face numerous body image issues that make life challenging. I am overweight. If you saw me, you would likely think that is a big guy, but my only saving grace is that I am 6 feet tall, so I carry it fairly well. I am genuinely trying to lose weight as well. I would not categorize myself as ugly, but my personality is undeniably my best feature. I know that sounds self-important, but it is the truth. I recognize that I am funny, and I always strive to be kind and considerate. Admittedly, I work a job with unsociable hours, which makes socializing difficult. Therefore, I have turned to dating applications, but as I previously mentioned, looks are not my strength, so they do not work well for me. I am uncertain if I am too nervous or if this is simply a preference, but the thought of a one-night stand genuinely frightens me. I suspect it is related to the reality that people are simply not attracted to me, but also stems from my body image issues. I recently reconnected with a friend after 3 years, and she visited my city to spend the day with me. Let's call her Jane. I met Jane when we were much younger, and we were really good friends. We did not used to talk frequently, but we always had fun when we met up. For context, she is 2 years younger than I am and would be considered out of my league even though she believes we are equal. We stopped talking in 2022 when she began a relationship, which was a bit frustrating. At the beginning of this year, we resumed communication, and I noticed that she had matured significantly, and I realized that I might be interested in her. There was a considerable amount of flirty texting for about 2 months before we agreed to meet up and see how things went. I had one of the best days I have experienced in a long time. We took my dog for a long walk, returned to my place to watch a movie, and then went out for dinner. We both dressed nicely for dinner, which was the first time I had put effort into my appearance in a while. I purchased a new outfit because I wanted to look nice for her. She complimented my appearance, and it made me feel fantastic. We enjoyed a wonderful dinner, went for a short drive afterward, and then headed back home. We changed into comfortable clothes and got in bed to watch another movie. There was cuddling and some intimacy over our clothes. She was the one who placed my hand on her. At one point, she tried to kiss me, and I cannot explain why, but I flinched when she leaned in. Feel free to laugh at this because even I can. It has become a running joke in my friend group because this is not the first time I have misread signals. She respected my reaction and we continued cuddling. She exhibited some odd behavior such as biting and licking my arm, but I kissed her neck and engaged in similar gestures. Eventually, she fell asleep, but we had no plans for her to stay over, so I had to wake her 30 minutes before her train since she had plans the following day. I thought we both had a wonderful time, and she said she did as well, but a couple of days later, she informed me that she does not have feelings for me because she is still in love with her ex. That's fine, fair enough. However, why does it feel as though I am not good enough for anyone? It makes me feel awful. No matter how hard I try to push myself beyond my comfort zone, I invariably end up hurt. It makes me feel as though I am simply not good enough or not worthy of taking a risk. To add insult to injury, the following day I broke my ankle in a motorcycle accident. Thankfully, no one else was involved, but I had to undergo surgery and am unable to work or engage in activities I enjoy. I have been hobbling around for over a month already and will be in a full cast for another month. I am not much of a socialite, but I like to think the friends I have are genuinely close friends. During this past month, only 2 of my friends have come to see me, and none of the people I believed would check in on me have reached out or even sent a message to ask how I am doing. I have felt extremely lonely and unhappy about it, but I do not want to appear needy by begging for visitors. I know some people have said they would come to see me if they could. As much as I appreciate the sentiment, they simply have not made the effort. I am the primary driver among my friends, and since my brake is on my right leg, I cannot even drive. However, I am beginning to realize that just because I would do something for someone, I should not expect the same in return, but it still hurts significantly. I am in a difficult place right now and feel apprehensive about reaching out to others because I do not want to be a burden. It feels terrible. I feel as though I have no purpose in life and that I have nothing to look forward to other than disappointment and rejection. I was once a police officer and loved every moment of the job because I was able to help people and felt that, even though I was not happy in life, I was a good officer who was happy to assist individuals at their lowest. As a person, I am difficult to anger, so I had a great deal of patience for others. However, my line manager was a total jerk who made my life unbearable, so I left. I intend to rejoin the force, but he has already sabotaged one of my applications by providing a negative reference, which only serves to enhance my feelings of defeat and purposelessness. I am unsure if I want to end my life or not because I am deeply scared, and I feel as if I am not allowed to have those thoughts. Realistically, I am only remaining here for my dog. I cannot express to him how I feel, and he genuinely prefers me over anyone else in the family. I do not want to disappear one day without him knowing where I have gone, without him ever seeing me again. Summary, basically I am just alone and struggling to determine why I am still here. I feel useless and do not truly believe I am allowed to exist or feel that I should be here. My difficult upbringing has led to many issues and I do not know how to overcome them. I strive to be happier and to work through my problems, but it is incredibly challenging. I feel defeated by life and failed by my closest friends, and I do not know what to do.